What's up, listeners? It's Andrea. Today, any serious horse person has their own saddle. We do not approve of this space buffet selection, and we ask the question, are we the Hutch? Stay tuned.
Welcome to the TNG Podcast, the number one place in the Alpha Quadrant to geek out about all things Star Trek: The Next Generation. I'm your co-host, Shereese.
Hey, I'm your co-host, Andrea. Today we're talking Season 6, Episode 18, Starship Mine. This episode was written by Morgan Gendel and directed by Cliff Bull. On an evacuated Enterprise, Picard plays a deadly game of cat and mouse with terrorists who want to steal explosive toxic waste from the warp core as a lethal beam sweeps the ship. Also, Data works on his small talk, which is hilarious. It's such a great episode.
Laughed out loud at least 3 times during this episode. Like, legitimately was like, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, what a good feeling for something to like shock you to the point where you laugh out loud. This episode was,
I know,
chef's kiss, amazing.
This episode has everything. And like, before we get further into our episode, Shereese and I were talking actually just last night, and we were talking about how, like, you know, does Star Trek qualify as any part of comedy, because it does have lighthearted moments. And it's like, it's not comedy, but it does really have so many lighthearted moments that you need to kind of cut that tension anyway. But this is one of those episodes that has like a really funny thread that runs through, and it's so delightful to watch.
Yes. And along with watching this amazing episode, we have a special guest here with us, which is so fun because we don't do that often. And we are just super duper excited about this guest. We want to welcome our special guest, who is a longtime listener of our show and a super fan of TNG. Welcome to the show, Jeffrey.
Thank you so much. I'm so thrilled to be here.
I have 2 questions for you. One, how did you get into TNG? And 2, who's your favorite character and why?
Okay, so I probably have a different answer than maybe other people you've asked. I didn't get into TNG until the pandemic kind of came along. My parents...
Wow!
I know, super recent.
So surprised.
Because I'm such a super fan, right? But that's, it's like converts. It's like, you get into something later and you're just like, so gung-ho.
Yeah.
But my parents were really into it, I suppose, as children. Looking back, I remember that my mother had a Star Trek The Motion Picture poster in her office, which
that movie is so good.
Right. Well, but just the rainbows, and a little queer kid. I was like, oh, rainbows in mommy's office. And I didn't really connect it, until many years later. But they took us to see the movies, the Next Generation movies in the theater when they came out. I remember vividly seeing Generations in the theaters, and I really enjoyed those movies.
Tim Russ was in, by the way.
Yeah. Well, and to bring it right back, right? And when the pandemic happened, I watched those movies again, and then I was like, there's 7 years of a television show with this cast that you love. Why have you never watched it? And I answered myself, as I often do, there's no reason. And so I started watching it, and it was just, now I've been through it, I think, 4 or 5 times. And
that's amazing.
It led me into DS9. It led me into Voyager. It led me into Discovery, Strange New Worlds. I'm very much trying to keep up with them too. But
that's a lot of content to take in a short amount of time.
So much. But I mean, gosh, we had the time, didn't we?
We did.
Yeah.
We had a little bit of time on our hands.
Yeah,
so.
we had the time. So it was just like this really awesome sort of, companion. And I play a silly game, Star Trek Fleet Command, on my phone, that I have told a very select amount of friends in the game that I'm doing this. And so this is me calling you guys out, Server 17.
Shout out.
Yeah, especially to Bagger Vance, which is his screen name. It's not his, I don't know his real name, but he's my favorite, so.
Okay. Well, okay. So who's your favorite character?
Favorite character. Oh, that is so hard. I mean, my immediate go-to answer, of course, is going to be Loxana Troy. I think we've spoken before about and one of the reasons that I love her is that she is sort of polarizing. People either love her or hate her. There isn't really a lot in the middle, but I just find her character to be really dynamic, and you have to follow her through to DS9, really, because there is some really awesome development, particularly with another episode that we'll discuss on another time. But I feel like really when you get into DS9 and you see her relationship with Odo and just how she continues to develop, it's just, I love I love a dynamic character like that. And she's also just, over the top and gorgeous and glamorous and fantastic. But
she is the most extra character. She really is.
But those waters, they run so deep, like she's got all that frivolity, but there's like, so we talked about the Timothy episode, and she hits all those.
She has a lot of layers.
Yeah. And she hits all of them for me.
Yeah. We've heard that before from other past guests and from friends, that once you get through DS9 and you see who she is, she becomes like one of your favorite characters because her development is really
that's amazing.
Strong and you see more aspects of her. I will say on TNG, you just get little hints that there's something deeper sometimes, like the Timothy episode, but mostly you just get this like shallow, super annoying woman who's gorgeous, don't get me wrong, but
right.
She's got a really big personality, which is amazing, but she's also kind of like just in people's business. She's annoying. But later on she gets deeper. And I think the same thing with O'Brien, who is kind of useless in TNG and so freaking clutch in Deep Space Nine.
Right.
And Keiko is like so clutch. She has such a huge role. She's starting a school and all these things versus you see her like 2 times watering the plants and making some tea. And like, that's all she is.
Right.
So I think there is something to be said about when you take it to another series and then just develop those characters, how they become so much more and so much different. And same thing with Worf. We've heard that, he really expands in DS9. So
the discussion of Worf is so frustrating. Everybody wants to hate on him for being a lousy father, and I'm just like, can we talk about something else, please?
He is a lousy father, but
I hear that, but there's also that amazing scene when Alexander comes back in time, and Worf literally says, "I would like to have an honorable death, and the only way I can do that is for you to be true to yourself and follow the things that you believe."
Yes,
literally started crying and called my father. I was like, "Hey, you've always been that man for me." Yeah, it was amazing. So he's layered again. He's got layers.
I have a friend who like many people do not like Alexander. And he was talking about that episode. He was like, I didn't even like him when he came back in time.
He is such a little shit. I didn't like him as an adult.
I didn't like him in any timeline.
Little weenie. Yeah, he's a very trauma-informed little weenie.
But the
still
Gilbos!
Oh, yeah. All right, well, anyway. Okay, so what are your initial thoughts, Jeffrey, as our guest? You get to start. What are your initial thoughts going into Starship Mine?
So I love a good Data episode, and I feel like this is a really good Data episode.
Oh, is it ever?
Right. Not that Data ever gets like, the fuzzy end of the lollipop and isn't paid attention to. He gets lots of opportunities to shine. But this is a really excellent one. I just love the entire and they start out right with it, in that turbo lift with Picard, like I'm trying out small talk, and it's this thread that continues throughout the show. And I just it's just Brent Spiner is just such a fantastic actor. Like who can say enough about him? So I guess that my initial thoughts are, while this episode is not about Data, I think this is like a really amazing Data episode. And that's like what I appreciate everything else about it. But I was like, this is a really awesome Data episode. So
which kind of makes up for Birthright Part 1, which is a really stupid Data episode. So this washes our mind of that unnecessary filler episode of the season to give us some meat. I feel like the last week's episode, which was Birthright Part 2, was so meaty, and this week's episode is also so meaty. Like Andrea and I talked last week about
so much goes on in this one.
Yes, we talked about how last week's episode there wasn't a single second wasted. Every minute had some information in it. And I feel like this happened in this episode by a factor of 2. Like every moment, every scene, every look has a purpose that you feel. There's nothing wasted. There's no one just kind of even those moments when they're sitting in the turbo lift and just staring at each other and it's awkward. Like that has a purpose because it's all about Data small talk.
For a reason, it's
exactly.
For a reason. It's not because they didn't have any dialogue. It's not just
it's
walking down the hall
the faces
to walk down the hall.
make it.
No, 100%, 100%. I so feel that. Shereese, what are your initial thoughts? I mean, was that kind of
my initial thoughts? It actually wasn't. That just came to me right now. But my initial thoughts was I didn't really remember a lot about this episode. I didn't remember the details. I remember it being action packed, but and I remembered liking it, but I was kind of a blank on all of that. And then when I finished the episode, I was like, oh my gosh, this was so great. Why is this not burned into my memory every scene? Because it was delicious. But yeah, my initial thoughts were I remember this being a lot of action, and I remember liking it. And I remember small talk, and I remember Picard running around the ship. And that's all I remember. I didn't remember why, who,
in jog purse.
I know.
Didn't remember anything else.
We talked about this where you're like, Starship Mine, which one is that? And I was like, which one is it? It's the one, right? It's the one with the small talk. It's the one with Picard running around in a very sexy, like, riding outfit, like being a cowboy by himself. Like on the ship, there's a fucking Baryon suite that's like
so great.
Totally. I was like, this episode has it all. Like, I love this episode so much. This is one of our 25 top 10
right.
This one's another one that's like, I don't want to say top 20, but it's in our top 10. Like,
you have like a top. You should just like every episode is in the top.
I know.
What you should do is just call out like the one, two. Exactly. Just everything is great, but then we've got Aquiel. Everything else.
I feel like it's now our mission. How many episodes do we have left until we're done with the entire series? Like 35. Every episode we do has to bash on Aquiel a little bit.
Yes. It's our new low point. It's our new low point, and I don't think we're gonna top it until we get to that stupid episode in season 7 with Worf's brother, which I just think is dumb. But even that one. Exactly. Like they're making, you can't see, but they're making faces. Yeah, it's okay. Like exactly.
I know.
But
anytime you need like a dumb sex crystal to advance the story, that this episode
something's gone terribly wrong.
Yeah,
something's gone terribly wrong. Well, but okay, what were your initial thoughts though, Andrea?
So I just wrote like, oh my God, I love this episode so much. It's got the small talk with Commander Hutchinson, which is so fun because you see Data like mining the movements. Yeah, call me Hutch, which is so fun. We've got a conspiracy. We've got Picard in riding pants and boots being a cowboy all by himself. We've got a deadly Baryon sweep. We've got an array. Like we've got
terrorists running through the ship. We've got fisticuffs left and right.
We've got fucking plasma torches, like
that was awesome.
A drawer full of phasers in sickbay for some reason. Like
we've got like a freaking crossbow,
and he's dipping arrows in freaking
with a poison dipped crossbow on the Enterprise.
Also, we have sodium water explosion reactions and like this episode has fucking everything. I didn't remember the arrows and I didn't remember the explosion, but this episode has it all. And it has actually a really awesome female counterpoint in Kelsey. Yeah. Where she's the leader of this terrorist group and she's smart, she's ruthless, she's fucking tough. She will not think twice about double crossing you, like
or shooting you in the face. You just she's the equal and opposite of Picard, and it's great.
Just boot you right into a Baryon sweep field. Like she's like all about it.
And I'm really glad they made this character a woman because it feels very equalizing to have a legitimate good bad guy who's a woman.
We've had enough equal baddies who are men.
Yeah,
totally. Marie Marshall plays Kelsey, and she just, I mean, they cast that so well. So let's jump in. So the Enterprise is docked at this array. And as we've seen with arrays, Shereese, we see it and we're like, yeah, that's an array. Like we've seen like
the Remler
10
array.
Different. The Remler array. I was like, that's the most array I've ever seen in my life. And this is totally, and I was like, I feel like I like the first array more, but this looks like an array too. That's cool.
I did like that first array a lot.
The Enterprise is just kind of like sandwiched horizontally, like among these two big, like floating platforms kind of in space, which is really cool. Yeah. And the Enterprise crew has to evacuate the ship in order for the Enterprise to undergo this like particle sweep to remove accumulated Baryon particles, which are toxic. And like
which I love how we all just accepted. Like I've never heard of such a thing before. I'm like, well, that's obviously this would be necessary. Particle. Of course.
Yeah. It tracked for me. I was like, yep. Sure do gotta sweep
I'm
that.
like, why? They've been in space a long time. This is necessary, of course.
Yeah, no, you need to like clean up your like warp stuff or whatever. And I was like, cool. You know what? This scene was I really loved it because there are announcements going on all over the PA. People are all in the hallways hustling, bustling. It's all hands on deck. It's super cool. Also, the computer voice is not Majel Barrett and this beginning part. So it's like, it's like people are like other people are using the comm system, being like, transporter 2 is down, reroute to all, whatever, right? It's super cool. It feels like what season 1 would have looked like if it was done with the polish of season 6.
Yes, you're right. Yeah, because you got the hustle and bustle, which we usually don't see. We see 2 people walking in a hallway, having a conversation. One ensign passes them. Like usually that's what we see because we don't want distracting people in the corridors, but this you've got like just people. There's just so much activity. But what's great about it is we have seen this before in the show, but usually if there's this much activity, it's because there's a Borg cube or something. Yeah. But here there's
it's
a
like
lot
all
of
hands
activity,
on deck,
and everyone's just wrapping things up to leave. So it is frenetic, but it's not fear-based. It's not anxiety-based. It's just more like, okay, we got this. All right, everybody have everything. It's just a really cool slice of life, which we always love seeing on the show. So we've got that going on, and Picard's going through the hallways, and every 2 steps someone calls him and says, Captain, and they need his information about something.
Authorization on something, yeah.
Right. He's so put upon in this beginning scene. Like, he can't take 2 steps without somebody being like, is this nail polish color working for you? What do you think? I don't know.
Yeah, should I do blue or should I do green? Or should I do a blue-green? And he's like, let's do the blue-green shimmer.
Let's do blue-green. Moving on.
Right. Yeah.
But I also love seeing him because he's pretty unflappable. And so he is very unflapped, right? By like all of these requests. He's just like very efficient, and he shows why he's the captain and why he's so good at his job, because he has answers for everything. And I don't know anything about the technology they're talking about, but they're like, Captain, the secondary containment cargo, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, let's reroute and repurpose this thing for that thing for tissue samples.
Right. She had like live tissue samples that wouldn't survive. And he's like, oh, we have this stasis thing and we'll just turn it into that. Yeah, amazing.
Convert it and Geordi will help you. And it's like, thanks, Captain. I mean, that was a genius idea.
Right. And although one wonders, I'm like, really? You couldn't have come up with that by yourself, Beverly? Because this seems to be like your bailiwick.
This seems like a you problem, Beverly. Yeah. I'll be in Turbo Lift 3.
I think all you need to say was like...
Sounds like a personal problem, Bev. See you later.
Yeah, she really, like, normally she would have been the one to come up with that solution and just been like, hey, Captain, this is what's going on. Can I convert this thing? And he would have been like, approved.
Right, for sure.
But in any case, we get to see him just being such a master. And I have had days exactly like I'm not a parent, but I was a teacher, and I've had many days like this, walking through a classroom or hallways or whatever, and it's just like, Miss Shereese, and you're like, yes, no, Band-Aids are in the left. Grab a pin, 3:00. It's not time yet. And it's just like, and you just sit down like, I'm going to make some tea, So
and Shereese really does sound like that when she talks to kids. Yes, no, put that down, put it in. Yeah. Take that out of your mouth. 3:00. I haven't spoken to your mom yet, but I will.
You know me so well. You've clearly been in my classrooms. And I don't know why they didn't have fun.
I don't know why.
I don't know why. It was amazing. So then he gets into the turbo lift, and you can tell he's like a little, like a lot's going on, but he's not like, he's unflapped. He's still like, okay, just moving on. And he's in there with Data, and it feels awkward. Like somehow they managed to really get across that feeling because they're both standing next to each other. And it's just like, how are you? Fine. And Data starts asking him these just weird questions. Like, the colony seems very close, doesn't it? And Picard's like, yes, it does. And he just keeps
he literally talks about the weather. Where it's like, nice weather we're having. It's like, first of all, we're on a fucking spaceship, so we're not having any kind of weather at all.
No, he was talking about
what time is it? Down in the talk about the weather
in the in the Aurelian space station or station on the planet or whatever. He's like, I hear their temperature control is quite lovely or whatever. So he's talking about the weather for the space station, and Picard's like, Data, what's going on?
What are you doing?
And he's like, I've noticed that humans fill empty spaces with non-relevant information. Picard's like,
it's the most Data thing to say.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is like non-relevant. You're right. That's exactly it. And he's like, small talk. He's like, yes, precisely. So I've created a subroutine to teach myself small talk. And Picard's just like, and he's like, how did I do? And Picard's like, I think it was a little too non-relevant.
Right.
Yeah, it was a little
bit too small.
Yeah, your small talk was a little too small.
We're going to need to upsize it a bit.
Yeah, and he's like, if you want to work on your small talk, you should really keep an eye on Commander Hutchinson at the reception we're all going to today. The man is a master. And man, I feel bad because everybody's like, God damn, I got to talk to Hutchinson. And I was like, I think Hutchinson is a perfectly lovely person, which leads me to believe that I'm the Hutch for our
You're that guy.
What's wrong with Hutch? I don't see anything he did wrong at any point in this entire reception.
He's a perfectly lovely, amiable, gregarious kind of person who just likes to share small stories. But I remember a comedian saying at one point, like, everybody at your workplace has that one person they fucking hate. And if you don't have anybody you fucking hate at your job, you're the person everybody hates. Yeah. And I was like, am I the Hutch? I think I'm the Hutch. Maybe I am the drama. Like,
I don't hate anybody at my workplace, so I feel like maybe that's a harsh truth I'm going to have to come to deal with. That's
what about
hard.
when you hate everybody at your workplace? Does that? What does the comedian say about that?
Then,
that's normal. That's just being a normal person.
I think you're also probably Hutch in that.
Yeah, I agree. You're just not as personable. So
right.
Yeah,
you're like evil. You're mirror universe Hutch.
So then Picard gets off the turbolift, and so we're already kind of, this is planted in our head, like Hutchinson is going to be like some master of small talk. So they get off the turbolift, and immediately Worf and Geordi start talking to Picard at the exact same time, which, by the way, also happened to me as a teacher. Like my first, I think, week teaching, 2 kids came up to me and started both telling me a different story about a different thing in their lives at the exact same moment, and neither wanted to give way to the other. And they went for like a solid 5 minutes. And I was just looking at them back and forth and back and forth.
You're like sipping your tea.
What are you expecting from me?
I didn't know what to even do. And it was another teacher who came in and was like, "Hey guys, do you think Miss Shereese can hear either of you right now?" And they were like, "I don't know." It's like, because you're both talking. And they were like, Yeah, you know how it takes them a minute.
I tell my students all the time, like, I have many superpowers, and one of them is not hearing multiple people talking at the same time. Like, I can't hear what any of you are saying. So take a breath, take a pause. One person tell me what you need to say, and then the next person. Yeah. So I get that.
I just hand out Post-its at the beginning of every class to be like, leave it on my desk, write it down. I'll get to it in the order it was received.
Within 24 business hours.
Yeah, seriously. So anyways, they're talking. They both have things that they need to say, and he's like, "Okay, we're gonna, turn off the security lockouts in like 30 minutes because we need 20 more minutes to install such and such to protect our computer systems." Like, all right, I've taken off my code, whatever. So we're all good. And he goes to like walk into his ready room, and then Worf is like, "Captain," and he's like, "Oh my gosh!" And so he turns around, and he's like, "Yes." And then Worf is like, "Can I be excused from the reception down?" And like he says it with so much like vehement
disdain,
disgust.
right?
Yeah. And then Picard's like, "Yes, you may, and I wish I could excuse myself." And Geordi overhears it, and he's like, "Oh, Captain!
Wait, can I maybe?" He's like, "No, Mr. LaForge, if I excuse everyone, like,
no one will be there. Yeah.
Nobody will be there."
Right.
So
I can't excuse the whole ship, Geordi. Quit it.
Yeah, that's the first part that I laughed out loud was right there when he was like, "No, Mr. Worf got there first. He beat you to it." And he just turns around and walks
kind of turns and goes,
yeah, he smiles. Oh. He totally smiles like, "I did get there first."
Worf is such a sneaky comedian throughout the entire series. Like, he has some of the most like amazing comedic lines, but he's such a straight man, right? He just delivers them in such a way that it's like, was that a joke? And I forget which character's like, I can never tell when he's joking.
Which is perfect because Klingons don't kid,
Right.
According to Worf.
But do you notice when Picard goes into his ready room, he's packing up a few like work documents, and by documents I mean these really cool pieces of like mylar sheeting or something with like colors in there. I don't know, some like resin tablets, and they're all like cool
overhead
colored
transparencies. Yeah.
yeah, bringing us way back to our childhood. But he packs up a few docs, and like Mr. Orton, who's like one of the staff members, of like, I think he's like Hutch's like personal assistant or whatever. Yeah, he's like, "Okay, so we're getting ready to meet you guys in like 20 minutes or whatever." And, Picard's like, sure. And he throws the little plastic sheets into like this little like hard case that folds up into like a polygon shape. Did you notice that? It was like a little briefcase.
I didn't notice any of this.
I don't remember this.
All I remember it is him. Maybe I looked away. All I remember is him looking at his laptop and being like, yes, the reception starts in an hour. Got it.
He like packs some work stuff because, Picard doesn't do downtime apparently, and like kind of closes it, and it folds up, like the hard case folds. Okay, I'm going to show my math side. It folds up like a parallelogram, like a hard case parallelogram with a built-in handle. And I was like, this is why I love Star Trek so much, because it keeps world building. Like, we've never seen a case like that. If anything, we've seen those like cylinder purses or whatever that they have.
Right, but don't you think that like the majority of Star Trek luggage is like cumbersome and
unwieldy?
Unwieldy, thank you. Non-ergonomic. I'm like, really? We're in the future, and that's the duffel bag.
Well, I feel like when Wesley went
hard
off,
cylinder,
right. Like, that'll fit anywhere, right in the overhead compartment.
When Wesley went off that first time to take his test to enter into Starfleet, he didn't even take a bag. Because I feel like
straight up transported
bags at all. Because
why would you? Because the stuff that you need, is where
you just replicate clothes,
where you're going,
and then just recycle it. Anyways,
like, do you have a favorite sweater in that? I don't know.
I mean, Wesley does in seasons 1 and 2 for sure,
obviously,
and they're all ugly.
Those are, I don't know. Those are also my favorite sweaters. I love them. If anybody knits, I will have those sweaters. Please make them for me.
Well, the thing I did notice was in that close up of Orton, we see the Arcarian makeup, and I was obsessed. I love this alien look. Like, it is so cool. Like, and it looks really great even in our high def. It still looks really great. So again, a huge difference from season 1 to now. It's like they're not halfway doing things to say, oh, it's good enough for the camera. They're making it look good in person. So it's always going to look good no matter what angle you see this from, which I just think is like really, really impressive. So anyways, everything's all settled. Picard walks back out, and in the 2 seconds it took him to have this conversation, the bridge is cleared out. And it was actually a really sad scene for me. It just, something about it felt really lonely. It felt peaceful, but it also felt like there's no lights, there's no beepy sounds, there's no random ensigns coming to take your place when you stand up.
And you don't hear ship sounds, like the hum, right? Yeah, not only... So first of all, he was actually in the... Like, I timed it. Like, I just went by timestamp. Because I was like, that was the shortest conversation. Because when he went into his ready room, there were like 25 people bustling around. Everybody had requests for him. Lights are going off, things are going off, whatever. And then it was 30 seconds that he was in the room, he comes out and everybody's gone. And not just that, but all of the panels are blacked out. Like, everything is powered.
Everything's off.
Down. Yeah. And I love how he just takes a minute to kind of embrace that and be like, it's a good ship, and he loves her with all his heart. And this is why I think Picard is everything. He even like touches the tactical panel, and he's like, you know, because how often do you get to see the bridge that quiet and vacant? Like, I love it. I love it.
A very touching moment.
And again, it really this wasn't wasted. Like, it seems like, oh, he's just like walking around the bridge, not
sentimental,
saying anything. But it wasn't wasted because it shows this connection that he has to the ship and what it means to him and the crew, and there's so much more. And then as he's getting on the turbo lift, all these people start coming onto the bridge carrying all this luggage and devices and stuff like that. And he looks kind of like, what's going on? Like, oh, okay. So even that was like, there's a little second when Tim Russ walks in, which is Commander Tuvok in Voyager.
Tuvok. I just called him Tuvok the whole time.
I did as well.
I was like, so Tuvok gets knocked out.
That's what it is. So he has a name on the show. I forget what his name is on the show. Let's just call him Tuvok. So Tuvok walks in, and I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot this is the one where Tuvok was in it. So I was like even more excited. Okay, so now we're at the reception, and I'm like waiting for Hutchinson to do his thing, because
so good.
I love the Data like making his faces in the background. So he comes up and talks to Beverly, and Beverly's just like, I don't know, she's so uncomfortable. She just does.
Everybody's like dreading this conversation with this man that most of them have never even met. Right?
Or like met a million times.
His reputation precedes.
His reputation, 100%.
Well, when he talks to Riker, sorry, I totally cut you off. I'm sorry. He goes to talk to Riker, and he's like, "You must be,"
and then immediately goes to talk to Riker.
Yeah, where he's like, "You must be the first, the first commander of the first officer, of the flagship," and he kind of does this glad handing, sort of jostling, he keeps kind of being like, "You scamp," the little. And Riker is over here trying to drink his wine from his very awkward wine glass. And like, he's getting like smacked on the back.
And like Vegas length glass. It's like from his knees to his chin. Giant glasses at this reception.
The only thing missing is like a preposterous curly straw, right?
Right, which would make it easier to drink this freaking drink, especially when someone's hitting you on the back. But they don't have that.
I feel like Hutch was 1 second away from locker room snapping him with his wet towel. It's like, Hutch, you're going in a little hard. So everybody's already exhausted by Hutch. And I'm like, Hutch is just trying to be super pleasant. Like, he's really just a sweetheart.
And then Picard walks in and he's like, oh, Picard. And he leaves Riker. And Riker and Beverly go to like,
they're like, what the fuck was that?
Yeah. They're like, what? And then Data walks over and gives Riker the same big giant handshake that Hutch gave him. Was like,
he's like, Riker, you old scamp.
Yeah. And he starts imitating like exactly the way Hutch was, his mannerisms, but his content of his conversation is still very Data. Like, it's still like the numbers and the facts and
it's still about weather.
Yeah, he says something about like the weather being like the right temperature, but he says, did you know that most alien species prefer to keep a temperature near their body temperature? For example, the Shellyak, right? And I was like, oh snap, we got to throw back to the Shellyak.
I heard that. I was like, hey, the Shellyak, the Shellyak and their comforter asses are back. Like,
their giant
a black comforter. We all played that game as a kid. Either we were bored or cold or both, and we put the comforter over our whole body and just walked around like a little money.
Shellyak.
Yep.
We became the Shellyak. put me in a crystal like stage and I'm the Shellyak. Yeah. No.
So Data and Riker, Riker and Beverly are cracking up at Data because they think he's doing a parody of Hutch because he's so like imitating everything he does.
He's so spot on. Yeah.
But the funny thing is he's not trying to be funny. When he's not trying to be funny, that's when he's actually funny, right? When he's trying to be funny, it's a disaster. But here, he's not trying to be funny. He's really trying to small talk. And they're just like cracking up at all of his like crazy nonsense. And Picard is like, I think Picard was in that conversation for a good 10 seconds before he was like, oh, have you met somebody else, for crying out loud? Like anybody? I opened my eyes,
Please
I saw Troy and Geordi. Let's talk to them.
Well, and Mr. Orton is like, I'm going to be way the fuck over here in the corner because like I work for this guy. I don't have to do this like on my downtime. Now so Hutch does say like, are you by any chance, first of all, like apropos of nothing is like, are you into ornithology, which is a study of birds? And like Data and Geordi are like, I don't want to say no. Sorry.
Like, hate birds.
Like, I mean, I don't actively go out of my way to harm them, but like, I don't know
if I'm into ornithology. I didn't know what that word meant. I was like, huh? Is that bugs?
Birds. Yeah, it's birds, I think. So he was like, oh, the mating dance of the so-and-so, whatever kind of bird. If the weather was better, we could take, like if the weather was good, we could take horses out to go look at it, which, Geordi and Troy are like, thank God the weather is shitty because we'd be stuck on like a 4-hour horse track. Go look at these birds they don't give a shit about. Yeah. And so that's when Picard's like, horses, this is my out right here. This is my out.
I didn't even know where that came from. Like the conversation was so nonsensical that I heard blah, 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 blah. Horses. I'm going to go get my saddle. And I was like, where did horses come from? Like I totally missed the conversation. It just was like, I'm going to go get my saddle. And everyone
So it turns out even TV viewers tune out Hutch.
Just say he's unbearable.
Something horses. And then Picard's like, I'm going to go get my saddle. And Troy and Geordi are like, you keep a saddle on the Enterprise? Well, yeah, because I never know when I might get the chance to go riding. On the Enterprise, you will never get that chance unless you're in the holodeck, where you would just have a holographic saddle. Like,
well, but every serious horseman.
Thank you. I was waiting for the line.
Saddle.
I was waiting for the line. I love that was a common thread that got pulled from time to time. And like, even at the end, it felt like a very 80s, 90s TV show where like at the end of the episode, they're like, everyone who's anyone in horseback riding has their own saddle. Everybody knows that. Right.
Duh.
And then it's like, and then you get the like laugh where everybody jumps in the air and high fives and it's a
like the end of G.I. Joe, right?
Yeah, frame smile, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's great. I love that. I love when Picard is like, horses? There's a horse trail. And Hutch is like, yeah, but the weather's no good. So it'd be like really like muddy and soggy. And and like cold out
there.
Yeah. And Picard's like, no one? Perfect. I got to go back to the ship.
Amazing.
He's like, Geordi, how much time do I have time to go get my saddle? He's like, yeah, you got like 20 minutes. 20 minutes. Perfect. Bye, ready. Gotta
in and out.
Perfect time for a shower, shampoo, and shine and get out of here with my saddle and my outfit change. And I love that Troy's like, your saddle. Versus okay. And I love that Troy conveys so much in her face where she's like, I see you. Okay.
Right. I know you're
enjoy your ride.
Like full of shit. And you're about to go up to the Enterprise and replicate a saddle.
And a kick-ass outfit. Now, I want to talk about his outfit. I love this look so much on Picard, and I mean Patrick Stewart really fills that outfit out beautifully. Not to objectify him as a human being too much, but like he looks so gorgeous in this outfit. He's back on the Enterprise. He grabs his saddle, and I said that in air quotes, and he was walking out. Okay, top to bottom, he's wearing a like velvet Merlot jacket that's open. And beneath that is like a dark emerald green, like silk V-neck kind of blousey shirt, and then dark gray velvet riding pants and black knee-high boots. And I'm like, holy shit, you look so good.
Yeah,
and they do such a
costuming. It looked amazing.
Like the color palette was so good. It was like these like gem tones with these dark kind of grays and black, and he like kind of blended with the ship, but like it's, his after hours look, so I wrote, I think on Instagram I was like, Picard after dark. It's a whole vibe we need.
No, like 100% agreed.
So good.
I feel like all of his casual wear, if you will, is really considered and is like all stuff I would even wear today. Like,
yeah, it's all
outfits.
like layered and like,
right.
I mean, it's like pleated. I mean, the man is single-handedly keeping the V-neck business up and running in the 24th century because everything on him is like a deep V. There's deep V and then there's Ryza deep V. Like those are the only
right. There's like sternum and navel. That's what we...
there's regular V and then there's triple X V. Yeah, exactly. So Picard's walking back with his saddle and he's only got a few minutes, you know, he's like 8 minutes away from the Baryon sweep at this point. So he's hustling back to
which is lethal.
Which is lethal. So he's hustling back to the transporter pad and he sees this like panel open in this junction box and it's super suspicious and there's like wires and crap hanging out and he's like, what's going on? You know, like, why would this be left open? So as he's puzzling, Tuvok comes out of the shadows and is like, who are you? What are you doing here?
Yeah, what are you doing
here? And it's like, that's my question for you, pal. So he goes,
like, this is my ship.
Exactly.
Yeah. What are you doing?
He goes, well, this junction box was open and I just was wondering. And Tuvok's just like, oh, yes, this maintenance needed to happen before the sweep because of blah, 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 and gives him some BS. And Picard, like, immediately knows it's all a lie. And he goes, okay, got it. All right, I'm out of here. And he just walks away because he sees this really menacing plasma torch in Tuvok's hands. So he starts to walk away. And as soon as he gets around the corner, Tuvok's like, hey, like on second thought, you know, I don't want to let you go. So then Picard turns and throws his saddle at him, and then they start fist fighting in the hallway. And I was like, yay, we're 8 minutes in. It's already an action movie.
I know. Well, first of all, the amount of times that Picard launches himself off the ground and just jumps full force into somebody's body in this episode is amazing. Yeah. This is the first time. I love that the full size and weight of a saddle really is shown because you throw it at somebody and it really can knock them down apparently. And I was like, oh, this is
that's
big,
a heavy,
right?
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't a Western saddle. It
was an English saddle.
It was an English saddle.
Yes, it didn't have, yes. And I was like, do I want to do a deep dive on saddles? And I was like, nah, there's so much great stuff going on. Like, it's fine. But yeah, they get into this full on fisticuffs and he ends up doing the Vulcan pinch on Tuvok and just knocks him out and takes off. And I was like,
it's what I find so ironic and lovely because Tuvok goes on to be a Vulcan in Voyager.
Right. Do you think that this is like what got him that job?
Well, no, I just think he really likes Trek because he was in the Star Trek movie. Like he's always been a big fan of Star Trek. He did a cameo here and they took a couple of cast members from TNG into Voyager because they took Tuvok, they took Neelix. He was originally a Ferengi.
Yeah,
then became Neelix. Oh. They took
Tom Paris, but he wasn't Tom Paris.
Right, he was
he was Nicholas Locarno.
Yeah. So I just
what a little fox he was. And, I mean, he grew up fine as well. But I just remember, and whenever he's Nick Locarno, and I have to look back, I'm like, yeah, I guess he was.
So I think he's just a fan of the show, and he's been in it multiple times, and so he just I don't know which one of his appearances landed him on Voyager, but I'm so glad he did because I think Tuvok adds that like sandpaper that we need in every series. But in any case, I just was like Vulcan neck pinch on the guy who's not yet a Vulcan. I don't know. I just thought it was really funny.
So
for sure. It totally works. He passes out immediately, and you're like, man, that's effective. So he runs away, and you're like, oh man, Picard is in for it now. The lights go off and you're like, we're like minutes from a shutdown.
Yes. Now we get Majel Barrett's computer voice. So it's like, warning, you know, primary power shut down in 1 minute or in 40 seconds or in 30. Yeah. And he's like kind of rushing around hallways to get to the transporter room. But there are a few times he like rushes out around a corner. But then the next shot, he's just like walking with purpose. And I'm like, buddy, you better pick up those feet and like move to the transporter room. Also, again, why not do a site-to-site transport? Why? You could have transported into your room, gotten dressed, got your saddle, and transported right out. But I guess without that, like, he wouldn't have discovered this, like, ODN panel is open and, like, you know, terrorism.
But a lot of that stuff is, like, Wesley was using this stuff seasons ago to get from place to place on the ship instantaneously. Yes. Why do you not have this?
They don't ever do that. They don't ever, like, the only person who took advantage of the site-to-site was Roga Danar. And that's because he was running for his life. So he was doing all kinds of crazy stuff with the transporters. But everybody else, they go to the transporter rooms to transport. Did it.
Yeah, I feel like Lore did it once or twice. Like site to site has been done, like, or in like extreme emergencies.
Well,
but
no, in that episode, you know, with Ashley Judd, right? Yeah, when they were doing, because they had to like site to site transport, right?
Yeah,
like they were, like, because they were being chased and they had to like, Crusher, emergency transport, whatever.
Just normally they don't do it.
Yeah, and Picard, like, things are shutting down. Picard ends up getting to the transport pad and sets like a time delay on it, like a 3-second selfie timer, and like runs over, and it's like,
right, just in the nick of time.
In the nick of time, you missed it, and now you're standing in a dark transporter room with a lethal baryon sweep starting on the ship, and you're like, F, now everything is screwed, because this is what happens when we have power outages. We run on our technology and we use it so much that it's like our crutch that we don't notice is there until it's taken away, and then you're like, now what do I do?
My thought at this moment was like, crap, he better get down to the cargo bay and hop in or to the shuttle bay and get a shuttle and like take it out, since he can't like transport or anything else.
Yeah.
But then
didn't even occur to me, but like, yeah, super idea.
I thought of that, but I was like, but without primary power, you can't open the cargo bay door probably.
I didn't even think about any of that. I had that thought, and then all the action of the episode took over, and I forgot that thought completely. And then I had that thought again right now while you were talking, and then I was like, yeah, but all the power's out. And then I was like,
yeah, you can't open the doors.
So like you could turn on the shuttle, like the shuttle could be powered, but like you can't get out of the ship without turning on at least that part of the ship.
And the shuttles don't have any weapons, so you can't even like fire at the cargo bay door and be like, oh, we'll place it later. Like you just
the shuttles
man
maybe
through the door.
have shields that would
you could at least insulate, or transporters
from the right, but then we wouldn't have an episode.
No, I don't think the shields would work. I don't think the shields would work. You need some special thing, which we see later on the episode. And so anyways, so Picard is trapped, and it's like, oh, crap. And so at this moment, I was like, how is he going to get out? He better get to the shuttle bay. And then we go back to the reception, and I forget completely about Picard.
Well, yeah, because then we get like the most beautiful scene of ever. And by beautiful, I mean hilarious, where, Data gets to try out his small talk with Orton.
God.
and like Orton's like, God, get me the fuck out of here. And Riker's still trapped.
And Orton's like, now there's two of them.
Yeah. Right. And Riker's like, get me out of here. And he's like, Hutchinson, have you met Commander Data? And like, those two take off, and they're off to the races. And to be a fly on that wall to just watch this, because as the episode goes on and like Hutch and Data are just like, like they're small talking, everybody else is just watching them to be like, dear God, they're still going.
Right. It's like a perpetual
motion machine
or something, right? It just goes on and on. Like, when will it stop? Will it stop?
But they're both having a great time. It was perfect.
See, I would have immediately be like, I'll bet you $20 this can go beyond XYZ time, right?
Right.
Like, immediately would have turned into some sort of bet. Like, let's all take bets and
make it
a
drinking game. Like, everybody take a shot when they laugh. Whenever they go,
they will both die here if nobody interrupts them. This will go on until they expire. Well, until Hutch does. Data probably.
Yeah, he'll still be talking to his dead body though. Yeah, right. But like they're just going, and you're just like, and again, that was hilarious, right? And so Geordi and Riker are chatting, and Riker's like, what happened to Picard? And he's like, oh, he went back to get his saddle because every serious writer has a saddle, and he's going to go horseback riding. So he's probably already out on the horse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like that thread gets pulled. Which I love that each person is like saddle, and then one person in the know is like, anybody who's anybody in writing has their own saddle. And so then now it's like two people who are saying that to two other people, and then four people. So that's how it ends up. I love it. Yeah. And he's probably like long gone by now. He is, but not where they think.
Yeah. Which then it freaked me out, because I was like, oh yeah, Picard, because I was so distracted by this conversation. But then I'm like, they all think he's fine and dandy. So they're not even thinking like, is he still on the ship?
Right. Nobody's even checking up on him.
Because he was going to go from the ship to the horses, and nobody's even thinking anything. And I was like, oh no, he's really on his own, because there's no power. He can't like communicate with them or anything. So I'm like, oh crap. So we go back and we see he's dragged Tuvok over to sickbay, and he's overhears Tuvok's space walkie-talkie. And his name's
this jargon is excellent.
His name's Devore.
It really is.
So he like finds his space walkie-talkie and he confiscates it. And then Devore wakes up, Tuvok wakes up, and Picard's holding a phaser on him, and he's just like, tell me what you're here for. What are you doing? What do you want? And he's just like, you're Starfleet. You're not going to kill me. I won't tell you anything. And by the way, because of the baryon particles and yada yada, phasers don't work. And he was like, well, fine. And so he drops the phaser. And I was like, well, don't take his word for it, man. Like, hang on to it. But he drops the phaser.
Have you ever heard of pistol whipping? You don't have to fire the gun. You can still like smack someone with it. Like, it's still usable. A weapon.
Picard, have you ever heard of pistol whipping?
Have you not beaten somebody over the head with your phaser? What, you missed that day?
Not.
Starfleet.
This is the day to try it. But yeah, so he pulls out the plasma torch.
I need a mug that says Picard.
Have you ever heard of pistol whipping?
Pistol whipping.
No. Picard, do you even pistol whip, bro?
I know. Do you even know how, Picard, to pistol whip?
What a bizarre mug. Like, what a bizarre mug. Even among fans.
It's one of those mugs. It's one of those mugs that would never get to go to work with me or anywhere because it would be like offensive, I think. So it'd be like merchandise that I would
think
purchase
it would just be
to keep inside the house.
People would be like, so what the fuck does that mean?
Yeah. It's like, it's from this one time when I made this inside joke. Well, it's a long story.
Right.
Never mind.
It's a very funny joke to two other people on Earth.
So he pulls out like the plasma torch and he's like, yeah, but I bet this will. You know, because you were threatening me with it about 30 minutes ago. Mm-hmm. And Tuvok is like, yeah, that's true. It does work, but you're still not going to kill me. And then Picard
because you're Starfleet.
Because you're Starfleet. So Picard hyposprays him. He passes out again. And Picard's like, yeah, you're right. I wasn't going to kill you because I'm Starfleet. That's true.
All the more reason for us to need hyposprays. Like I have insomnia. And man, I wouldn't give for a hypospray to just put me to sleep for like 10 hours. Oh my God. I was like, yet again, where's the technology? Right. Now, Picard does overhear over the space walkie-talkie, their little comms on the workers, and deduces that they're meeting in main engineering. And he's like, off he goes. And so back on the planet, Data and Hutch are just engaged in what I call the small talk Olympics, like the laughter and the random factoids and the glad handing and the like punches on the shoulder. They're just solid gold. Now, we kind of spoke about this, but not in super detail. But like before, when Riker was talking to Hutch, Data was like peeking out from behind a pillar and like mimicking and miming like everything that Hutch was doing and like doing these facial expressions. So Data's on his own being like, right? So it's just so silly and funny. And that's also on our Instagram up now at the TNG Podcast, where it's like he's just peeking out behind the pillar, like pretending to, he's like hand air shaking and like it's just so great. So now he gets practicing. To like, yeah, he's doing like the real run now with Hutch, and they are just talking about God knows what. It's like everything and nothing. Yes, it's like Seinfeld. It's the show about nothing,
like,
you know?
The same breadth of knowledge of it. Well, I mean, the bottom line is Hutch just knows like so much about all of this like bullshit minutia, right? And of course, Data knows everything. So whatever Hutch could bring up, it's like, oh, well, yes, I do know that. And did you know this about that? Because I know this too. And then it's Hutch being like, I did know that. And did you know this about that? Because it's very interesting that you should say this. And it's
I do love that. Hutch is saying, like, did you know that like Arcania or whatever planet they're on is only one of 4 known planets at XYZ? And Data's like, I did know that, but did you know it's one of 7 known planets that has no atmosphere whatsoever? And Hutch is like, I didn't. And then they're like, it's just so freaking funny to me.
It's like, great.
I can watch that scene over and over and over again. It never gets old. It's
I mean, the bottom line is there's just like really nothing wrong with Hutch if you want to talk to him.
Right. Yes. Which like nobody does. But nobody wants to talk to him. It's so great that Data happened to be running this program, because now nobody's like rolling their eyes trying to get away.
Everybody's free.
It's become a show where everyone's like entertaining, and enjoying the reception, and also kind of every once in a while looking over and be like, they're still going, you know? So now like everybody wins. So Geordi goes to refill his snacks, and his visor... I did clock that he was eating like chocolate covered espresso beans. I was like,
and that's straight. What are those orange peppers? Like, you cannot eat those. Like, you can, but like you can, like, it's like you put like a tiny sliver and you chop it and you mix it into your guacamole. You do not just pop those orange fuckers. I'm telling you, that will burn your tongue right off. They're like, oh, this looks spacey.
Yeah.
He could have this on his little plate at the buffet.
I do love that we broke down what's on his plate. We're like, he's got ghost peppers and some chocolate covered espresso beans. And let me tell you, those do not go.
And I don't even know what because like when he's on, he's like, I'm like, what are you chewing though? Yeah. Because I know you didn't put one of those orange fuckers in your mouth, because I would be able to tell right now if you were chewing on that orange horrible pepper. Yeah.
And earlier with Riker, he was just eating a plate of marshmallows. It was just the tiny little marshmallows you put in your cocoa. I was like, I want some marshmallows.
Well, thank God it wasn't a peptide cake with mint icing. At least that's
coming.
Sake.
Yeah, that's funny. So his plate was marshmallows, chocolate covered espresso beans, and ghost peppers.
And habanero or like ghost pepper. Like
I think I don't know.
I think what are they called? Like the Reap, like there's South Carolina Reaper peppers or something like that. That's
I'm literally gonna Google this.
They're called like death peppers or some shit. That's like just millions upon millions of Scoville units on that plate alone, mixed with chocolate covered
with a little something sweet.
Yeah.
So to bring you back to life. So he notices something with his visor, which again, his visor is so cool.
Thank you, visor.
And so he goes, oh, there's some like power emissions or something. So he goes to look down and suddenly one of the waiters comes up and is like, sir, can I help you with something? And he's like, yeah, there's like this root. I can see this power fluctuation under the table. And Orton comes over and he's like, it's nothing. It's fine. It's fine. It's a normal fluctuation.
Or just the heater
blah, blah, blah.
for the food.
It's
to
just
keep the marshmallows hot,
malfunctioning, and the peppers we want toasted. And he goes, "Oh, well, let me take a look at it because I'm an engineer. Like he's the chief engineer." This is what I do. So he's like, "Oh, if there's a malfunction, I can handle it." They're like, "No, we don't need your help with anything." He's like, "It's not a problem. No, we don't need your help. We don't need your help." And Riker's like, "What is going on?" So as he goes to walk over there to be like, "What's going on right now?" Suddenly the other waiter's like, "Orton, do it now!" And they pull out these giant guns and start firing. They shoot Geordi, he collapses. They shoot Hutch, he collapses. And everybody's like, what the F? We were just chilling, eating freaking marshmallows, and now you're shooting us?
Also, thank you for shooting Hutch. But what's going on?
But why'd you shoot Geordi? Right? Like, and how did Hutch
Why didn't you stop at Hutch?
Thank you for killing the life of the party, because we were not having this with this man. Yeah.
But why did it kill Hutch and not kill Geordi? I don't know, but whatever. Yay, Geordi's alive.
I know. Thank you. And also R.I.P. Hutch. But truth be told, he died doing what he loved, talking about nothing.
Talking about nothing.
He did die doing what he loved. So, you got to respect the game on that. Yeah. But I thought about that where I was like, why did one phaser rifle like hurt Geordi?
Why was one set to kill and one set to stun?
Yeah, because it was, I realized because it was two different men who had the phaser rifles. Yeah. One was probably just like set to kill and one was set to gravitate or whatever. So I was like, okay, but yeah, because at first I was like, wait, did you just get shot two different types, like one phaser rifle that did that? And I was like, no, it was two. So I guess one was like trigger happy and he set it like really high. But like, Hutch and Geordi are both down. On the Enterprise, we kind of jump back up to the ship. Picard
and
is
Data goes to make a move, but they hold the gun on him.
Yeah, they're like, don't move.
You see Troy cowering behind a pillar, which is wise because bullets are flying suddenly.
Yeah, I was like, girl, get down
at this reception. And now it's like the mood has changed. It went from like ha 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 lighthearted to there's guns, we're hostages, what the F? So now you're like, what is going on with this reception? And then boom, you're back on the ship and you're like, oh yeah, Picard.
This episode does such a great job of like leaving you in the peak.
Yeah.
Like suspense and then jumping to like
to the other thing. I know. I'm equally as frustrated by that kind of plot structure as I am engaged by it. Yes. Right. I'm like, I don't give a shit about this other stuff. You were just about to do something really important.
Yeah. And then 20 seconds into your rant about how mad you are, you're like, oh, but
you're like, oh, wait, that's right. Interesting too. Yeah.
And then the cycle of abuse continues because they keep doing it to us like 20 more times. But it is so engaging. It's so good. Now, Picard is caught by one of the workers and brought to main engineering. And then that's where we meet Kelsey, played by Marie Marshall, who does a brilliant job. She is so formidable. And she questions Picard, and Picard does a great job as a hostage. He's like, I'm not the barber.
His babbling was second to none. The fact that he I have the
nervous rambles,
theater training behind me, and one of the biggest problems I always found in my own scene work in high school, which of course is very professional, like when somebody's interrupting you, people stop where the script tells you to stop, and it never works. You stop in the middle of the word where the script tells you, everybody can tell you were waiting to stop there.
Thank you. That drives me crazy.
Off a little bit, right? It's so frustrating.
That drives me
and it's very
crazy.
Amateur, which is why we have Sir Patrick Stewart, one of the most wonderful actors ever to grace stage screen.
He must be protected at all costs.
Exactly. God, that babbling. It was just, I was like, this is a fucking master class in acting while you're acting. Mm-hmm. Like he's already playing Picard as Picard being somebody. It was just amazing for me.
It's like Picard Inception. It's so great, and the move that he makes is so smart because what he's doing is he's disarming figuratively disarming his captors into thinking that he's just this bumbling moron that they're like, don't have to take seriously.
Nothing to see here.
So because he's a barber, he doesn't even have any kind of training. He's not a threat in any way, shape, or form, basically.
Yeah, we don't have to worry about him.
You're a barber. Like, what are you doing here? And / why are you dressed like that? And he's like, well, you see, I came back for my saddle because, every serious writer has to have a saddle. And they're just like, shut up, sit down. We don't want to hear from you anymore. Okay, yeah, I'll sit down. You're like,
so great.
So clever.
So great. And Jeffrey, I'm so glad that you pointed that interrupting thing out, because that has been driving me crazy since I've started watching TV and movies as a kid, where I was like, you cut halfway through your word waiting to be interrupted, and it just comes across as disingenuous and staged. And it's just not, no. So I love that, like, they're like, shut up.
Right. Well, and I didn't know where to go. And then everybody was gone. And so I thought, and then finally they actually cut him off, and that's how it should be.
That's how it should, where it's like you get a little bit of license to be like, just ramble, and then you cut him off when you feel your character would be sick of his rambling. Right. So well done. So he gets to sit down, and we're back to the reception. See, so now we're totally engaged, and now we get ripped out of the story back to the reception. At the reception, Hutch's body is covered in a blanket. So it's like, damn, you killed Hutch?
Because at first you just thought they both got shot, and of course they were stunned. And you come back and there's a body bag, and you're like, oh no,
what the F?
He just died. Like, we're not even in a war. How are you just gonna kill somebody? And this was like the main
mid-reception.
Right, this isn't even Game of Thrones. How are you just gonna kill somebody like that?
Why don't you just honestly, because I personally think Hutch is just like a very sweet guy that I don't want to run into like too much, but a really nice guy nonetheless. Why didn't you just stun him and having just like, rubbing his wounds in the corner and looking sour? It's like, you
or at least at most passed out for the duration of the episode and couldn't be revived in the credits, for God's sake.
Well, you know what? If he were just stunned, Beverly would have found some kind of hypospray somewhere to just knock him out, to be like, we just need you to sleep.
Right.
Like, don't start talking, Hutch.
There is so much going on right now, Hutch. I can't with the birds.
I can't with you right now.
I can't with the birds.
Yeah.
It's better for all of us in the long run.
Shut up about the sun, okay? Shut up about the sun.
Yeah. It's very humid. We get it. Shut up.
So Riker, they're all kind of like casually floating around each other and talking, and they're trying to make it seem like they're just talking about nothing, but they're all trying to make a plan. And I thought to myself, both of these hostage situations, these hostage takers, could really take some notes, because they're letting the crew talk to each other. This is like your first mistake. You're letting them talk to each other and just walk around. And of course they're going to make plans. You guys just don't know Starfleet very well.
Oh, yeah.
Even on the ship when they're guarding Picard, it's like they take a guy off what he's doing to just stand in front of Picard with like a torch or whatever, and just like, it was like you didn't incapacitate him, cuff him, tie him up, nothing. You just
just gonna stand in front of him. I'm sure he's not gonna fight back. Like, why would he do that?
Yeah, you put him in
timeout. You got a weapon leveled at him. Like, it's not worth it.
Yeah. So I was like, well, this is on you when they escape. But so they're like, they're freaking out because they're like, okay, this is a hostage situation, but they haven't made any demands. They haven't made any statements. They haven't told us anything. They haven't said anything. So what kind of situation have we fallen into? And so, Troy is like, I can tell that Orton is stressed, because it looks like they're just cool and under control, right? They're just standing there holding their guns, not saying anything, not moving. But Troy's like, no, I can sense that he's stressed. Like, something has not gone to plan. Right. So we do find out from Beverly that there's no permanent damage for Geordi. Unfortunately, Hutch is gone, but Geordi will be just fine. However, she needs desperately to get him to a hospital. So I feel like that's a mixed message. Like, he's fine.
Right. How fine is he? Right. Yeah. He's fine. It's just he's going to die if I don't get him
to a hospital
elsewhere.
In the next 3 hours.
He's not fine here. He'll be fine someplace else.
So I feel like that was a little bit not totally aligned, but in any case, they come up with this plan to use Geordi's visor to emit this pulse that is going to knock everybody out. It's some kind of sonic whatever weapon.
I mean, with the proper calibration and reversing the polarity.
If we can turn that into a replicator, that's all we need.
If you have some sort of interface between the visor and the main computer, it could just fucking fly the whole ship for us and like run the hydroponics bay and also knock everybody unconscious and like send subspace messages, code it. Like, it does everything. It does.
So I suppose the signal that they're launching to knock everybody out has more to do with like the power supply of the visor and them being able to like force it out of the visor, which is something that it's not designed to do, right?
Yeah.
So like they're kind of like MacGyvering it though, right? It's not like that the visor does everything. It's that they can kind of turn it into whatever they make.
Well, yeah, that's true. And it makes me all the more want a really dope visor like that, because you can MacGyver it to like cook a snack, to like send a pull, to play some music, like all the stuff. It's very, very cool.
He's got this dope ass visor that does a bunch of stuff. And so Beverly's like, let me MacGyver this, which by the way, I feel like one of the requisite requirements to be an Enterprise crew member is your ability to just become MacGyver at any. Like, look at Worf last week in Birthright Part 2, like, beep, boop, beep, boop. Like, it was like a wall heater that he turned into an explosive device. And you're like, okay, sure.
But to go back to Shereese's point, this is precisely why Miles O'Brien becomes such an MVP in DS9, because that man can fucking do anything.
Yeah, he
can out MacGyver everybody.
He just, whatever it needs doing, like, he'll make that machine. If you have a fax machine that you instead need to be a 3D printer, give Miles O'Brien 20 minutes is all I have to say.
That's another shirt I feel like I need, but okay.
Also a bit niche, but yeah, I'd love to see it.
Just a tad. So we go back to the ship. So now we know they have a plan. They have some kind of plan to escape. So now
like some terrorists. Yeah.
So we don't feel as stressed when they go back to the ship. And Picard is sitting there. And actually, before he discovered that they were doing something with trilithium resin, he overheard them say something about trilithium resin, and he knew exactly what that was.
Yes.
And like all the technology in this episode, all of it tracks. Whatever they say, you're like, yes, I 100% believe it.
Like, yeah, of course. Makes perfect sense.
He hears trilithium resin and he freaks out, and you're like, uh-oh, that's bad. Whatever that is, it's bad.
I mean, it's not dilithium. That's trilithium. This is serious.
And it's resin. So it's more serious.
Anybody who smokes weed knows that resin, it is like, that's a different animal. It's just different.
You have a little bit of trilithium resin, and the next thing you know, you wake up wearing Birkenstocks and a poncho.
You're just like,
in a gas station outside of Fresno, and you have no idea how you got there, and it's been 6 days. Yeah.
Sipping on an open Pepto-Bismol. Just like,
we got another trilithium head. Okay.
Oh, no.
You know how it is. So
wearing Birkenstocks and a poncho, no pants. You don't know how.
And the Pepto-Bismol. Everything about this is like a Coco no for me.
No shade on the gas stations outside of Fresno. Okay, but you know, you're trying to.
Hey, you gotta get gas somewhere. I know. Yeah.
So Picard had before he went back to the reception, Picard had, or maybe it's here, but he like knocks the guy over, the one guard. And he, before he knocks him over, he uses this little laser torch and he sticks it in a whatever conduit. And somehow it does something that causes steam to explode everywhere. And you're like, that's amazing. And everyone's like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And they're freaking out and there's steam everywhere. And he jumps up.
I thought about that. I was like, that must be like a fire suppression system or something. You know, it's like,
because it was like coming
immediate
through the pipes. Yeah.
That's
probably what it was.
Like, that's cool.
He knocks the guy over and then he smashes their little device that's going to protect them during the baryon sweep, because they have some specialty device that's going to surround them and keep their little bubble safe so they can keep extracting the trilithium. So he destroys it. So he's like, we're all just as screwed. Breaks it, and then the doors start coming down, and he does that Geordie like go. Except for he tells them to all stay, and he runs to the door. Stay. He slides under the door and like takes off across the hall, climbs up a Jeffries tube, and you're like, whoa, he escaped. But then the guy he knocked over gets up, runs out just before the doors close, and knows exactly where Picard went. Which how did he even see? Because there was smoke. But he's
everywhere.
It's so annoying.
He goes to the same exact place. And I thought at least he'd have a few seconds of like, maybe he'd need to listen for footprints before but no, he knew exactly where he went. And he went right into the Jeffries tube.
He was so ready.
And again, we're back into the action movie. And you're like, oh my gosh, go. Because every time Picard's gotten away, he's gotten away for about 10 seconds. And he turns around and someone has him at gunpoint. Mm-hmm. So you're like, he's finally made it. So he's going through the Jeffries tube. You think he's going to get away. He opens one of the doors and the baryon sweep is at the end of that Jeffries tube. It's like coming towards him. So he can't exit that way.
He has like 7 seconds to come up with a plan. Yeah. And Sattler is after him. And it's like, dun, 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 like a shot of like Picard crawling through the Jeffries tube and then Sattler crawling through the Jeffries tube. And I was like, dang, this is a really Jeffries tube heavy episode, which I love a good Jeffries tube.
And it was great. The way they
that's why I'm here.
Yeah. Yes. Jeffries representing.
You needed a Jeffrey.
He's representing all of the tubes in this episode. They are sponsored by Jeffrey.
Yeah. And no joke, in the game that I play, it's server 17, but it is the Jeffries server.
Is it?
Jeffrey. Yeah.
Like spelled the way of
Yeah.
That's
it's
amazing.
The Jeffries server. Yeah.
Nice.
Well, I picked it on purpose because I'm very egotistical. But yeah, that's
well, it was like Jeffrey's tube can be a very inside joke too. So
you know what? And I'm like so naive and dumb. I've never even thought of that. And it's just I need to send a text message.
Okay.
Pardon me while I send a few text messages.
Pardon me while I hop onto Grindr really quick.
Yeah. I'm change my handle.
Change my screen.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Now Sattler comes crawling through, and he does discover like Picard's really cool Merlot jacket, which I was like, no, not the Merlot velvet jacket. And he finds the jacket, and he kind of crawls toward it, and he's like, what is this? And when he lifts the jacket, he discovers that Picard very cleverly used the laser welder to like cut a space out of the panel and like wiggle himself out. But he only has 2 seconds to realize it, because then you see the baryon sweep like come
hit
to the door.
In the face.
Hit him in the face. And we see Picard, like we don't see his death, but we see him going, and then the next thing we see is Picard like walking down the hallway, and you hear Sattler screaming, and he's like,
yeah, and Picard just pauses for a second because he knows what just happened, and then he keeps walking.
Yeah.
He has to keep walking. That was
which brings our body count this week to 2 so far. We are not even close to done yet. But so far, R.I.P. Hutch and Sattler. Yeah.
But in that scene even wasn't wasted, right? The scene where he hears him screaming, so we don't see him die, but we know he died. We see Picard pause, so we know he's like, oh, that sucks, but also it's like life or death.
Like,
and then you see him keep it moving.
Not spoils of war, but like, the reality of war. Like this is, I didn't want this to happen. Yeah. I wish it didn't, but I didn't make it happen. He was here doing this shit,
choices.
But it was all over him, like there's death here, and there is maybe even death at the hand of Picard, but it's not anything that he would have chosen, like it's all,
and
it's all like,
difference. He didn't and they make it too.
Right. And they make it very clear. It's like, it's all over him. Like, I don't want to do this. I have to do it. I don't want to.
And I think there's a way that they could have shown that exact same idea of like, I didn't want to do this, but I have to, where you could see Picard like shoving him into the baryon sweep or something, where it's like more direct. This guy just was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And yes,
it's more subtle. Yeah.
It was a little bit more subtle. Yeah.
He was curious at the wrong time. Like if he would have looked and then just like taken a step back, but because he was looking as the sweep hit him, he didn't even have time to like react.
There was no time. There was no time to react.
That was even that was not a wasted
brutal
scene. It was
it wasn't
beautifully done.
Now we jump back to main engineering. Kelsey and Neil, who I call alter ego Barclay, are like, because he's such a nervous little engineer. He's just like, well, I guess I get like, he's like, like Where's Waldo, and then there's like whoever the odd law is, like the bad one. Where I'm like, this is alter ego Barclay as a criminal right here, as a terrorist Barclay. They're like,
and he's so competent, right? Just as competent as Barclay,
but also so nervous. Where I'm like, boo, did you just get like caught up in the wrong crowd in high school?
And
like, this is what happened.
I was thinking,
because these are not your people.
Yeah, like how did you even
victim or something? Like, why is he with these people? But no, he's there on purpose. But
he's clearly like roomed with somebody on like a summer camp or something, and you just got dragged in.
Some really bad stuff. Now, so Kelsey's like, okay, Mott has destroyed our power diverter that was protecting us in the baryon field. So plan B time. We're going to take the trilithium to 10 forward. It's the last place the sweep is going to hit, so we'll have time. And Neil is like, you can't just start hauling trilithium resin all over the ship. Do you know how unstable it is? And we don't know how unstable it is, but it turns out it's less unstable than Kelsey, who's silent with a look, and he's like, okay, sorry. Like,
well, actually, I'll do exactly whatever it is you said I should do. I will fucking
kill you. It's like, oh my God. Jeez Louise.
She's very over the top.
Badass. Yeah, I don't want to come across her. I really, really don't. But also,
spoiler alert.
So at this moment, we're like, okay, so trilithium apparently is very, very, very dangerous.
It's like nitroglycerin. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they're chit-chatting, and one of them says, I don't think Mott's a barber. Which was like the greatest line. That was another part where I laughed out loud. I don't think Mott's a barber.
Not a barber.
I found this in the Jeffries tube, and it's his like comm badge. And so Kelsey's putting 2 and 2 together, like, he's some kind of Starfleet officer. That's why he's going around, is there any word from Devore yet? Nope, no word yet. It's just like, he's going around.
Although that didn't make a whole lot of sense to me either, because I feel like everybody on the ship probably has to have a communicator, right? Because it's like, where is so-and-so? So-and-so is not on the ship.
They're using the walkie-talkies because their comm badges don't work with the Baryon suite.
Right. But I just mean, the fact that they found the comm badge is what said to them, this man is not the barber because I found a comm badge. Why wouldn't the barber have a comm badge is my question. Yeah. Like, I get it that it's, question. But it doesn't have any of the pips on it. It doesn't denote rank. They all look exactly the same. So I'm like, would not the barber on the ship
need a
because they would be like, Mott to the salon,
we need you to do the gel manicure again. Yeah, like
Mott to the barber shop. Yeah.
Right. So I just feel that I'm strange.
That's a good point.
I also took umbrage to the scene because he didn't have a comm badge on his Superfly outfit.
I don't know where it came from. It had to fall out of his pocket.
Where the hell did you just have it in your pocket?
Like for something. I feel like if I were to because I did watch it this morning and last night. No, he didn't at all.
I went back because I was like, false. Like the green-haired alien.
Maybe in his pocket or something.
It had to be in his pocket because he had it when he went back to the ship. Obviously, he was in
and it's unlikely that he would just leave it.
So why wouldn't he still have it to go back to the ship? But where was it? It had to be in a pocket because he was not wearing it at all.
But see, my question also too was, once the transporter cut out, you could still come and be like, hey, the primary power was shut off the ship, but I'm still on here. Why?
I don't think his comm badge was I don't know. I think all the technology wasn't working. Like the phaser wasn't working.
Okay.
That's why they have their special in-group comms. But I think he used
one of their things.
Yeah. But yeah. No, I did have that question at the end because he did comm the station at the end with it looked like one of their things he was using, but then it was like, well, if theirs work, you could have used theirs when you first got it.
Why can't you just piggyback on their Bluetooth?
Superior to yours, right?
Yeah, and just be like, get me out of here. But he couldn't have done that because Orton and them were in on it, and they were the ones monitoring the comms at the station. So I don't know, but he didn't know that. Anyways.
Don't you find Orton to be a little bit less elegant than Pell Orton?
I do, and this was part of this was part of the small talk conversation that Data was trying out. He was like dry running with Orton, and Orton was like, "Get me out of here." And Data was like, "Well, I've noticed like people of your species usually have Pell as like an honorific, and like so now you're just Mr. Orton." And Orton was like, "I don't care what I have. I will sell my soul to get out of this conversation."
Call me Bob. Just get away
doesn't matter. Dr. Bob, I don't care. Now.
Also, shout out to the Orton family in New Zealand. Good friend.
Now they're like Picard and Kelsey are having this amazing like cat and mouse, where like Picard is like dun 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 dun, like walking around with purpose, right? And he's like, who's got all the weapons? Worf has all the weapons. Like, let me go into his quarters. Also, I really love that magnetic thing they put on the door to manually open. I really want one of those.
Like a circle thing. It was a circle that they had to like twist and push before, but now it's like a little. Like a magnet, like a tricorder. Yeah, just put the little square
sort of
on
like deactivates whatever force it is that keeps the door together.
And then you can just open it with your hands.
And that's like, such a powerful, like just, in any movie or scene, like, in an elevator or whatever, when it's somebody just like pulling those doors apart, it's like, yeah, Picard, do it.
Totally. Now, so we're doing, I know, in those velvet riding pants. Oh, so we're realizing that like trilithium resin is used as an explosive, so it'll fall in the hands of terrorists. And like Picard uses the comm badge that he stole off of like not Tuvok to tell Kelsey, he's like, don't be a fool. Don't move the resin. It'll destroy the whole ship. And they have this great verbal back and forth. And Picard starts fucking making some poison tipped arrows. Like it's Die Hard in space. Like, let's just call it what it is. It's Die Hard in space. It's totally Die Hard in space.
I was thinking Home Alone, but yeah, Die Hard. Yeah. Because it just
like felt so Robin Hood Men in Tights.
Or Robin Hood Men in Tights. A lot of great movies rolled into one episode.
Yeah. It is.
Because you see him like preparing all these weapons that don't need any electricity to work, and he's dipping the arrows in what looks like poison, and you're like, oh snap!
He's like milked a toad or something to like get that
like
poison.
Where did the poison come from? In his
but all of this tracks. Like the great thing. There are so many great things about this episode and the show in general. But Picard is somebody whose education is based in history and archaeology, and so it's not a stretch at all that he should be like, I know how to use these old weapons and I will make them work now. Like it makes perfect sense that he could do it.
You are so right. You're so right. So they, he's like, putting together all these different things and doing little explosion tests with chemicals and stuff like that.
I love it.
And he's listening into the walkie-talkie, and he hears them, hears Kelsey saying, okay, we're going to move the trilithium, blah, blah, blah. So he jumps on the walkie-talkie and is like, don't be a fool. It's so unstable. Like Andrea said, it's going to blow up everything. Like, I know you're heading to 10 forward because it's the only place you would head on the ship. It's got, it's the last
logical place.
Swept.
Yeah,
he already knows where they're going, not because we overheard them, but because he has such great logic. And she's just like, well, we'll kind of see who gets there first. And you see her. Oh, and earlier we didn't say this part, but earlier her little nervous Nelly buddy Neil had made this cool little container with a strap to carry around the trilithium, and she just like snatched
which
it
looks
from him.
nothing like the the metal duffel bags they've been using.
No, but it does look like the old school CO2 containers to gas your water up to make it bubbly. And I was like, oh, they just made a really big one with like because it's got that same shape, and then like the nozzle, because they like fed the nozzle into like the warp core, and then they're like, okay, it's got like 150 milligrams of this or whatever. Which I was like, cool. It's because my dad had one of those old, like the original Soda Streams from way back in the day. So you have to get the little CO2 cartridges and like pop them in. But yeah, that was really cool. Now, something I do love, because it becomes very cat and mouse, they're like, we'll see who gets there first. And as Kelsey and Neil are like taking the ladders up between they open like one of the hatches to the next level, and Picard has used the shit out of that laser welder and cut all the rungs of the ladder. And I was like,
sliced them right off.
Yeah,
where I was like, there's no way to hold that.
And it's so satisfying, because he didn't need to cut all of them. He could have cut just like the ones that they could actually reach, but he cut every single
He's like, don't even try it.
One at a time. And she's just like, we're going to have to find another way. And Neil's like, why? What's wrong? And she's like,
shut up, Neil.
Yeah. So she comes down and she's like, that wasn't very smart of you, Mott. Should I say Lieutenant Mott or Lieutenant Commander Mott?
Yeah.
And she's like, we're going to find another way. And he's like, there's only so many ways to 10 forward. I know the ship inside and out. Like,
yeah, it is Starship Mine. Say the name of the episode in the episode. Yeah.
Only a handful of routes. I know which ones you're going to take, which ones you're going to try. And she's just like, you know what? When I see you, it's going to be curtains closed.
Yeah.
And he's just like, because she's like, you're going to be dead anyways from the baryon sweep. And he's like, I plan to get out the same way you're going to get out. You obviously have a ship coming. You weren't planning to be on this.
You planned this. Yeah.
You weren't going to be on this. So I'm just going to leave on the same ship that you're leaving on. And she's like, the ship is too small. I don't think there'll be space for you. No, she says, the ship is very small. I can't hold both of us. And he says, well, then I'll send them your condolences.
I'll send you regrets. Yeah.
I'll send
such a good line.
You're welcome to test that theory at your convenience. He's got such awesome responses.
Patrick Stewart must have gone into the writer's room and been like, give me some really good zingers, like some really good one-liners. And they did. He got such great lines.
So I have it on good authority. There's going to be these things called memes in 25 years. So I need you to give me some stuff.
Give me some good material and make it really meaty. Now, Kelsey does show just how treacherous she can be when they're crawling around the tubes or 10th forward. And Kelsey is like, Neil, once I've got the CO2 cartridge, like, onto the scout ship that's coming, like, is this going to be like stable or what? And he's like, yeah, I've got the control rods. As long as you keep that, like, it's stable. And she's like, good. That's all I needed to know. And then turns her gun on him, and like off scene, he dies. So I'm like, now we've got another dead body. And Tuvok is long gone as well, because he was not
swept up a while back.
He's been swept a while ago. So now we've got like a number of people like
the body count
dying. Yeah. And so down on the planet, the hypersonic pulse is almost ready. Data and I think it's Riker kind of like look over to the panels, because like Orton and company are like lowering defensive shields and all this stuff on these like, tactical panels, because they're like, there's a small ship coming. Like we gotta like figure something out real quick. So this pulse is almost ready. And I love that they're like, okay, Data, we're all going to be knocked unconscious. How many times do you need Data to save you from unconsciousness? I love it. It's like, we're all going to be unconscious.
Right. Everybody except for you is going to be totally useless. So
yes. Team A is going to be me, Beverly, Troy, Geordi, and the dead Hutch. Team B, that's you, Data. You're carrying the day.
Sounds fair, right? Great.
Yeah. We need you to carry the day. You got it? Okay. Ready to go. Let's go. Yeah. It's pretty amazing. And I think that's when they do it, where they're like, okay, go. And Beverly like does the hypersonic pulse, and they all like grab their ears and fall over, and Data is like, okay, and like goes right over to the panel and starts like beeping things, and I'm like, right on. Meanwhile, by the way, I think I forgot to write this, Riker gets into like a fist fight. Like there's another fist fight in this episode with like Orton and the other dude.
A fist fight so that they can like activate the visor before they are ready to switch it to full power.
Like a distraction, right?
That's the distraction. But in any case, they do it. It works. Data saves the day. It's wonderful. We're super excited. And then we're back on the ship, which is
everybody's happy except Hutch. Yeah.
Exactly. He's at least relaxed.
I think he was always relaxed. But yeah, so now it's just down to it's Kronos and Kelsey and Picard, and they're walking into 10 forward because he was captured. Like, I mean, he shot a guy with his poison tipped bow and arrow, which was dope. And then
that was Pommet, the green-haired one. Yeah, I was over here like trying to take notes because I'm like, the green-haired one, the other alien, the lady alien, the other lady alien. I was like, I need some names, I think, or something. So I had to like IMDb it to look it up.
Yeah.
But yeah, he ends up like, this was something I had forgotten about. And it's such a great scene because it shows like the setup in his plan, because he was like, we all know the next logical place to go is 10 forward. He's already been to 10 forward, you guys, and he set some booby traps up in there. And I was like, oh my God.
Which is why he was ready to shoot the guy in the hallway, because he knew they were coming through the hallway to 10 forward.
Yeah, so he was ready for this
with a crossbow. You're like,
yeah, and then that's when Kyros was like, okay, gotcha, because like they were waiting for him to wait for Pommet. Yeah, I was like, oh my God. But yeah, they make it to 10 forward. He's got this booby trap explosive, so it looks like that sodium water reaction that's like a big explosion and gas and smoke and stuff, right? It's really fun. And so in the ensuing like chaos, that's when they have this full-on fist fight. Now somehow Kyros just sort of disappears from the scene. I'm guessing she got buried swept.
She stepped on
did that kill
explosion.
her?
Yeah, well, it knocked her out.
Okay.
So when he walked in, there was like white tape and then there was a blue tape. So when he walked in, he stepped over the blue tape. She was right behind him. She stepped on the blue tape. It exploded. She got knocked out. So then it was just him and Kelsey.
I love that it was just like a strip of like blue painter's tape on the stage, like to demote like where your like places on stage.
It was great. It was so simple.
It was
and
awesome.
So effective. Where you're like, oh, that's the blue tape is explosion place. Okay. Like, okay, yeah. So then she got knocked out. So of course she was baryon swept like seconds later because the baryon swoop was coming in towards them. But then they get on this full-on fist fight, and I really appreciated this fist fight because I felt like they fought as equals.
Yes, they did.
Like, men can't hit women, or she's just trying to scratch his face. Or
Kelsey grew up in the rough streets of wherever planet she's from. I was like, she can fucking fight.
She's
holding her own.
It was a legit fight. It was a great fight scene.
Her and Picard are like rolling over each other. I was like, whoa, this is so good. So good.
And then they kind of like break apart, and she gets the upper hand, and she goes and grabs the container with the trilithium. Yeah. And then her ship is there, and she beams off, and she's like, I guess I'll be the one sending your regrets. And then she beams off. And then Picard's like, oh crap. So he runs to like the tippy top corner of 10 forward.
As high and as far in the corner as he can.
And he's comm badging with somebody's badge. And he's like, to the, space station.
Picard to anybody.
Hello, Picard to anybody. Cut the baryon sweep. Cut it now. Cut it immediately.
Yeah, I'm still on the ship. I'm still on the ship. Yeah, it's like, oh my God.
And it's always, we know something bad's happening because there's green and it's getting close, and green is bad. Exactly.
Green is bad. Yeah,
it's bad. So the baryon sweep stops just mere inches from him, and everything shuts down. The power comes back on, and you hear Data, and Data's like, Captain, are you okay? Or whatever. Like, you're on the ship, huh? And he's just like, yeah, Data, I'm fine. And then he's like, there's a small shuttlecraft that just left orbit. Do you want us to, like, is that okay? Or something he says. And Picard's like, yeah, they won't get very far. And he opens his hand, and he's holding like the very critical regulator piece that Neil put on to make sure that this super unstable
control rod
explode.
Right. The pin of the grenade, if you will.
Yes. He's holding the pin of the grenade in the palm of his hand. And he's like, they're not going to get very far. And looks out the view screen, and you see a huge explosion. So there's another handful of deaths.
But so satisfying, because you don't often get like in my opinion, in my experience, there isn't like often a death in Star Trek where you're like, but this one I was like, God, she deserved that. So
and her terrorist buddies. You don't feel bad for anybody. Yeah, they all going to use this.
Exactly. They were all bad people.
I mean, I felt bad enough for Neil because he was like clearly in over his head. Yeah. But
although now I have to wonder, I'm like, were they Maquis? Maybe they weren't so bad. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? Well, for her, it was all about.
She was an arms dealer, so
that's what it was.
That's what who the terrorists were that she was.
Yeah, she's like because Picard was like, you're going to sell this to terrorists, and I'm like, but isn't she also a terrorist?
Well, no, Picard thought she was the terrorist. Yeah, he said you're a terrorist, you're going to blow up stuff, and she was like, no, this is just for money.
This right here is commerce.
It's like, that's even worse because you don't even have a mission you're like doing this for. You're
right. You're just doing it for money. You don't have any kind of like righteous cause, right?
It's even worse.
It's right. It's not anything that means anything to you. It's a paycheck.
They blow up in the most satisfying explosion in Trek history.
Also, did you notice like Patrick Stewart did like the kind of rocking? Because, you know, they shake the camera to make it look like the ship is rocking from the explosion. And he kind of rocks. And there's like this kind of greenish glow of like, and I was like, see, again, it's just the little teeny tiny details like that continue to world build. It's a world building positive feedback loop. It just builds more world and builds more world. It's so amazing. Now in sickbay, like all is well that ends well. Beverly's patching up Picard because he's had a bunch of adventures. He's been in fisticuffs like 11 times. And Worf finds Picard's saddle because remember he threw it at Tuvok and then like took off, right? So, and it's a big ass saddle, like it's not going to be missing in a clean, empty, carpeted hallway. But apparently, like somebody put it in like a maintenance locker. So he finds Picard's saddle and brings it to him. And the running gag of anyone who's a series writer naturally has their own saddle because now Troy and Beverly and Riker have all heard it. So they're like, yeah, Worf. It's very elementary school. You don't know the joke. Somebody explains a joke to you, and then you treat somebody else like an asshole for not knowing the joke you didn't know 10 seconds ago, right? So it was just very much that. And I was like, I love how it was just so funny because Worf is like, yeah, I guess. Like, everybody's trying to be polite. There's positional power with the captain. You don't want to be like, what? Saddle? What? Like, that was just so fun.
Yeah. Well, and like the end of G.I. Joe, like I said, well, and now you know, and knowing is half the battle.
Freeze frame.
And then it just stops. Yeah.
This is a great episode.
The episode is over. So far, as far we know, we have 8 deaths in the episode. That's the head count for today's episode.
Yikes.
We've got Hutch, R.I.P., Tuvok, Sattler, Pommet, the green-haired dude, Neil, Kiros, Kelsey, and I'm guessing the pilot of the scout ship, like had to have some sort of pilot.
Well, and maybe we don't know who else might have been on that ship too, right?
Yeah, 8 at least.
At the very least, the pilot.
At the very least, 8 deaths in this episode. It's a pretty deathy episode for being so like light and terroristy. Like, it's very light. It's a very lighthearted
light and terroristy.
We had that terrorist episode in season 1 where Beverly was like kidnapped and then like fell in love with the terrorist, or he fell in love with her, something bizarre.
Yeah. And he kept drawing her like a fucking creep.
Yeah, and we were like, this could have been a really interesting episode, but it just ended up being creepy.
But it's not? Yeah.
But this episode, on the other hand, is so good because, and I think one of the things that makes it so good is, unlike that episode where they try to be like, we're fighting for a reason, we're bombing little kids for an important reason. Like, instead of that, where it's like a really hard sell, this is like, we don't even care about the terrorists. We don't even know what the reason is. This woman's in it for profit, and we can all understand that. We don't even need to make a backstory. We don't need to make some cause that makes it all okay. She's just greedy and ruthless. And that is more than enough reason for her to be doing all this nonsense. Like, we all believe it. We all believe it. We're like,
Yeah.
So I think this episode did terrorism and hostage taking in a really like exciting, dramatic, but funny and lighthearted
action-packed way.
Somehow.
Yeah.
A really sort of palatable, approachable, murdery, terroristy episode.
It's terroristy, but like super approachable.
It's like terrorist light. It's like diet terrorist.
Yes. It is.
Yeah.
It is. It's just a bunch of iceberg lettuce, but like it
brunch
works.
terrorism. You wouldn't really have it for dinner.
Yeah.
Sorry. Like brunch terrorism is the best phrase I've ever heard. It's cappuccino terrorism. It's light and frothy. Like
it's all these serious issues, but in this package that makes it so like
super
fun
exciting.
And
fun.
And not scary at all.
Not scary, which real terrorism really is. Okay.
It's terrifying, yeah.
So, okay, obviously we have to be good people and say terrorism bad. So
terrorism bad.
Terrorism bad. Okay.
Bad.
So, final thoughts. Jeffrey, as our guest, what were your final thoughts on this episode? And you watched it twice, so
I did. I watched it this morning and last night as well. So again, I love a good Data episode, and I think just like the constant journey that Data is making to become more human, you know, like with every episode is just such a pleasure to watch. And I think one of the more interesting things about Star Trek is how like often they declare that Data doesn't have emotions and can't feel certain things, while at the very same time making it so clear that he has those emotions and is feeling those things. I know he doesn't have the chip or whatever, but like you can, he feels it. I don't care. You know, so I really love that, just watching him develop and grow. But I also just love like this is such a wonderful ensemble cast. And this is an episode where they get to have a good time with each other because it's like kind of them versus Hutch, right? So you get to see them kind of playing around. Not that Hutch is a terrible villain or anything like that.
No.
But it's very much them being like irritated by him together, and he's on the other side of it. And I just find like their relationship as characters and actors so charming because you can tell that they just really enjoy each other's company. And you can tell that those characters really just enjoy, like they would be at that reception anyway, you know, having drinks together, having a good time. Yeah, it's a work thing, but they would totally hang out. They love hanging out. And so it's just like, it's just a lot of fun to watch them, you know, having fun while they can until people start trying to kill them.
Yeah, totally.
You know, up until that point, it's a lot of fun.
It's all fun and games.
But it's an action-packed episode that like there is no moment of a lull, you know, it's back and forth, and then it's over. So yeah, just it's a tour de force.
It really is. Shereese, how about you?
I just wrote, this episode was great in all caps, and I'm adding this to my rewatch list immediately.
It's so fucking good.
Immediately. Like, I wanted to watch it again. As soon as it was over, I want to start over at the beginning and watch it again.
I did.
So good.
Well, yeah, you're so right. Like, this episode wants for nothing. It has everything, and there isn't a single lull. And it's just absolutely... knowing how the episode ends and knowing that, you know, the day is saved does not take away at all from like the urgency and suspense of watching it again. Like, I could watch it right now and still feel that sense of suspense and urgency and shock, and that's what I think is a marker of a really great story, right? Is that
when you can feel that anxiety every time, even when you know it's going to be okay.
Even when you know it's going to be okay. And like, and I've written some, and like, I know I'm still very, very early in my writing process because I read my story and I'm like, okay, I know how it ends, so I'll be fine. Like, I never stress about the details, but like, you're stressing the details here, and it's so fun. So for me, like, this is one of my all-time favorite episodes. You know, we joke that we have like 25 movies in our top 10, or like 25 episodes in our top 10 favorite. This is really, really one. The A and B plots are separate but intertwined. We're starting to get into the portion of TNG where this is a really great problem to have. But the problem I'm finding is that because each scene has so much packed into it, that it's hard from a note-taking perspective to like review it. Because like, I'll watch a 20-second scene and then have to type for like 10 minutes because there's just so much has happened. And the story is so freaking engaging that a 20-second watch of a scene becomes like a 60-second or 5-minute watch where I'll be like, oh crap, like I haven't written any notes. Now I got to go back and do like all that work, because there is just like, you don't want it to stop. It's so much fun. I really love it.
Yeah, this is a great one.
This is Jeffrey. We have so loved having you on. I'm sure our listeners are going to want to know more from you because you are on socials and you are so funny. Jeffrey, by the way, is a like sci-fi meme generating genius, and his stuff is so freaking funny. And if you're a Star Trek fan, which you've got to be listening to us, like, you would love Jeffrey's stuff. Jeffrey, where can our listeners find you on like socials?
Or even which Facebook groups do you hang out in the most?
Yeah, so I'm in Star Trek Shitposting, which is probably the best Star Trek Facebook group there could be. It's a really welcoming community. It's very diverse. That's where I post most of my memes. And I mean, you can find me on Facebook, I suppose, and on Instagram. Instagram's a better one. I'm Definitely Maybe on Instagram. So please do look me up on Instagram.
Can you spell that, by the way, for our listeners?
GeoffFinitely, Definitely, and then Maybe, Maybe.
Okay. Perfect. Well, if you guys were loving what Jeffrey was saying, as we have been, check him out. He's very, very funny. The comedy stylings of Definitely Maybe well worth a visit. Guys, next week we are breaking down season 6, episode 19, Lessons. Thank you so much for nerding out with us. We will see you next week.
Bye. Thanks for geeking out with us. Be sure to join the crew at thetngpodcast.com to be the first to know when we do our live shows or host events exclusively for our members. We'll see you next time.